Marvel fans, comic geeks, and all nerds in between. My name is Megan, and I'm here with another character breakdown. And in the spirit of Spider-Man Brand New Day being right there, like next week, I wanted to talk about some spider-centered characters. Like today, I want to talk about Jessica Drew, who is Spider-Woman. So I had a listener ask me like months ago to make an episode about her, and it has taken this long because her background is so extensive. There's so much into it, and she's such a good character, so you can't not talk about her. So I'm finally making this episode. Thank you to the listener who asked me to make it. I hope you enjoy it. So Jessica Drew, she first appeared in Marvel Spotlight number 32 in November of 1967. That was as Arachne. Then she appeared in Marvel 2-in-1 number 29 in April of 1977 as Spider-Woman. Jessica Drew's life is one giant, it can't possibly get weirder. And then it gets weirder. So starting from the beginning, Jessica was born in England, but when she was about a year old, her parents packed up and moved from Paris to a little cottage near Mount Wundagore in Transia. Her dad, Jonathan Drew, was a geneticist working with Herbert Wyndham, who would later reinvent himself as the High Evolutionary, because scientist was not as dramatic as he'd like as a title. After discovering huge uranium deposits on their land, they suddenly had enough money to build a giant research facility dedicated to experimenting with evolution, genetics, and cell regeneration. A tale as old as time. Totally normal family business. After years of living next to enough uranium to make a Geiger counter cry, 4-year-old Jessica developed severe radiation poisoning. Jonathan desperately created an experimental serum using the blood of several rare spider species and injecting them right into her. Then he sealed her inside Herbert Wyndham's genetic accelerator to speed up her healing. Except speed up turned into sleep for several decades. Something went horribly wrong in that translation. Jessica remained frozen in stasis while barely aging, and during all those years, her mother, Miriam, waited for her to wake up, as mothers tend to do. Miriam eventually got so old that Wyndham literally made a clone of her so someone could keep watching over Jessica, because comic books do not believe in solving one problem without creating at least 3 more. When Jessica finally woke up, she was physically an adult, but emotionally someone who'd skipped most of her childhood, adolescence, and society in general. She also discovered that the evolved people, the new men of Wundagore, thought she was kind of creepy because she was part spider-powered human and not one of them. Which, part spider-powered human is super weird. So Jessica did what anyone would do. She left home and got a job as a bartender. Things briefly looked up when she fell in love, but during what should have been an innocent prank, she panicked and accidentally blasted her boyfriend to death with her bioelectric powers. The villagers immediately skipped right past tragic accident and landed on Witch. Chased by an angry mob, Jessica ran straight into the waiting arms of Hydra leader Count Otto Vermis, which somehow made things worse. Vermis offered her protection, trained her to become an assassin, taught her martial arts, espionage, and approximately 14 different ways to ruin someone's day. While Jessica, already traumatized, completely lost her memories, including her own name. Hydra's resident telepath, Mentalo, even convinced her Hydra wasn't a terrorist organization at all. It was just bravely standing up to evil corporations. Sure. Jessica still couldn't quite buy into the Hydra's whole aesthetic, though. Everyone else's uniforms are green, so she made hers bright red just to be difficult. Hydra's first mission for her was to kill Nick Fury. Jessica's response was, no. Instead, she turned on Hydra, fought Vermis to the death, and won. As one last act of psychological warfare, Vermis told Jessica she'd never actually been human, that she was an evolved spider disguised as a woman. And needless to say, this messed her up. Jessica wandered Europe having a full-blown identity crisis until another run-in with Hydra in London brought her together with the Thing, who is Ben Grimm, and the sorcerer, Modred. Modred magically showed her the truth. She was human all along. That's good news. Unfortunately, she was also super broke. Living in a tiny rundown apartment, Jessica once got so hungry she tried stealing canned food from a convenience store. She immediately felt guilty, put everything back, and walked out, only to be spotted by SHIELD agent Jerry Hunt. Hunt spent weeks trying to track her down while Jessica desperately searched for work, eventually dyeing her hair black and creating a secret identity just to stay off everyone's radar. Despite insisting she didn't want to be a superhero, she inevitably stumbled into a gunfight involving two criminals she'd met before. Jessica beat them, saved Jerry Hunt's life using her laser-resistant blood, and accidentally started what would become an on-again, off-again romance. Soon after, a mysterious sorcerer named Magnus entered her life, taught her how to function in regular society, and informed her that her father had been murdered. So obviously, it was time for a road trip. Magnus and Jessica moved to Los Angeles and pretending to be uncle and niece while investigating Jonathan Drew's death. Their search led them to Pyrotechnics, where Jessica fought the Brothers Grimm, got kidnapped by the Hangman, reunited with Jerry Hunt, and eventually exposed her father's killer, who confessed right before just so conveniently dying. Then Jessica and Jerry became a couple, but they eventually broke up because of course they did. Magnus also secretly left after developing feelings for Jessica, which was awkward enough without mentioning he was technically connected to her dead father's ghost, which is, weird. Still searching for a purpose, Jessica attended a self-help therapy group where she met actress Lindsay McCabe. The two instantly bonded, mostly because they both walked out of therapy together, deciding it was absolute nonsense. Lindsay became Jessica's first real best friend. Jessica bounced through careers again, becoming a bounty hunter alongside criminologist Scotty McDowell. They eventually split because Jessica was way too independent to enjoy having a boss. She and Lindsay moved to San Francisco, where Jessica finally seemed to catch a break. She became a licensed private investigator, which is, it's very strange to me how many private investigators there are in Marvel. I don't know. There's a whole bunch of them. There's more than other companies, there's quite a few, and I always want to know why. But anyways, she built a successful detective agency. She started dating her landlord, which is messy. His name is David. Earned the nickname the Dark Angel of San Francisco. She worked with local police. She even saved Carol Danvers from Rogue one time. And for about 5 minutes, life was actually going really well. Then David found out she was Spider-Woman. So that caused a breakup, naturally. Almost immediately afterward, Magnus returned asking Jessica to help permanently stop Morgan Le Fay. Jessica traveled back in time, destroyed Morgan's physical body, and succeeded, right before Morgan cursed her. Jessica's soul became separated from her body, convincing her she died. Thinking there was no coming back, she asked Magnus to cast a spell, making everyone she'd ever known completely forget she existed. Fortunately, Tigra and the Shroud found her body before it was too late, performed CPR, called the Avengers, who called Doctor Strange, and together everyone managed to pull Jessica back from a magical death. The downside, while she survived, she lost all her superpowers. Jessica retired as Spider-Woman and focused on running her detective agency with Lindsay. She even let the X-Men crash at her place after one of their adventures with the Beyonder, because that's what happens in Marvel, and it's kind of cool when they have these random crossovers. A later case took Jessica and Lindsay to Madripoor, where they crossed paths with Wolverine, going by his famous patch disguise, which consisted mainly of wearing an eye patch and assuming nobody would notice, but he did look really good in the white blazer, and honestly, whatever. He looks good. Jessica spent around 2 years there before returning to America, where an encounter with Julia Carpenter and Jillian Woods appeared to restore her powers. Was the problem solved, you asked? Not even close. Dr. Octopus had empowered Charlotte Witter as yet another Spider-Woman who immediately stole Jessica's powers. Jessica later helped Madam Web mentor teenage Spider-Woman Maddie Franklin after Maddie defeated Witter and claimed the title for herself. Jessica's own powers slowly came back over time, except they kept randomly fluctuating. During this period, she teamed up with Heroes for Hire, worked alongside Wolverine again, and kept doing detective work. One investigation into Maddie Franklin's disappearance introduced Jessica to private investigator Jessica Jones. So 2 Jessicas, 2 private investigators. All right. Their first meeting went exactly how you'd expect when 2 extraordinarily stubborn superheroes completely misunderstand each other. Jessica zapped Jessica, Jessica smashed Jessica through a kitchen table, and both Jessicas realized that they were on the same side and teamed up to rescue Maddie from a drug dealer using her manufactured mutant growth hormone. Comic books are exhausting, but in a good way, but exhausting. Later, Jessica tried infiltrating Hydra by herself and even hired criminals to rob a bank because Hydra was somehow low on cash. The plan immediately fell apart when Warbird and She-Hulk caught her. Once she explained herself, the 3 women teamed up to destroy the Hydra cell instead. It also marked the beginning of Jessica's long friendship with Carol Danvers. Still frustrated by her unstable powers, Jessica accepted a dangerous deal with Hydra. She'd spy on S.H.I.E.L.D. for them, and they would permanently restore her abilities. Nick Fury found out almost immediately. Instead of arresting her, Fury shrugged and decided to use Jessica to feed Hydra fake intelligence. It was a solid plan, a very Nick Fury plan. Except neither of them realized that Hydra had secretly been infiltrated by Skrulls. The moment Jessica's powers were fully restored, Skrull Queen Veronke, I've never heard it out loud. Anyways, this queen copied Jessica's DNA, kidnapped the real Jessica, locked her aboard a Skrull spaceship orbiting Earth for what may have been like 2 years, and impersonated the Spider-Woman so perfectly that she joined the Avengers while secretly preparing the Skrull invasion. Jessica eventually got rescued by Iron Man after spending months, possibly years, as an unwilling space prisoner. Unfortunately, coming home was not exactly a victory parade. Most people associated her face with the Skrull Queen and the invasion, making Jessica feel like she was paying for someone else's crimes. Wolverine recruited her into the new Avengers anyways, because Wolverine does not care. Luke Cage and Ronan were very suspicious of her. Jessica worked nonstop to prove she belonged, even helping Luke Cage and Jessica Jones recover their kidnapped baby Danielle. Later, during Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers era, Jessica volunteered to lure Osborn into a trap. Norman figured it out. He sent the Hood's gang instead, and the entire ambush exploded in everyone's faces. Jessica blamed herself. By this point, she felt like she'd officially been the unluckiest person alive. Then, S.W.O.R.D. director Abigail Brand showed up with a job offer, which Jessica accepted. Her first mission involved tracking a Skrull pretending to be Spider-Man in Madripoor, followed by fights with Hydra, more Skrulls, the Thunderbolts, and pretty much anyone else who wandered into the mission briefing. She helped clean up the remaining Skrull mess on Earth, and Abigail Brand kept handing her increasingly bizarre assignments, which was probably the closest thing Jessica Drew ever got to a normal career. After the whole siege thing wrapped up, Norman Osborn got fired into the sun, which was figuratively. Hammer collapsed, and Steve Rogers became the guy in charge of coordinating superheroes. Looking at Jessica's resume, which included survived Hydra, got replaced by a Skrull Queen, and still showed up to work, Steve invited her to enjoy the Avengers. What happened on her first day? Absolute chaos. The team had to deal with a very rogue Wonder Man who decided the Avengers were actually making the world worse. And King the Conqueror showed up because apparently time-traveling dictators don't believe in orientation days. Once Kang was dealt with, they immediately had to stop the Hood from collecting the Infinity Gems. So, like an average Monday. During the Serpent's invasion of Earth, Jessica realized she'd caught feelings for fellow Avenger Clint Barton, Hawkeye, and the two actually started dating. And I've said it once, and if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. It's not talked about how much of a little hoe Clint Barton is in the comics. Like, we talk about Daredevil getting it in all the time. We talk about all these other heroes. But Hawkeye is a sleeper hoe, and I want that known. So anyways, they start dating. It didn't exactly last, so it still happened though. Norman Osborn returned with a rebuilt hammer that was now tangled up in Hydra. Jessica tried bluffing Hydra agents into thinking she still worked for them. Nobody bought it. Punching commenced. Then came Avengers vs. X-Men, where Jessica sided with the Avengers, obviously, and helped invade Utopia over the whole "what do we do about the Phoenix Force" debate. Not long after, Clint slept with a woman he'd literally just met, and Jessica's response was essentially absolutely not. That was when their relationship was over. Like I told you, a sleeper hoe. Then things got very Spider-Verse. When the Inheritors, basically the vampire family members who eat spider people for fun, which is super specific, started hunting spider totems across the multiverse, Jessica joined the Spider Army alongside Silk, Spider-Girl, Scarlet Spider, and a whole lot of Spider-Men who proved there's absolutely no limit to how many spider-themed people can exist. They bounce between alternate realities, including Spider-Man 2099's future, where Otto Octavius had already started his own resistance. Because if multiple spider people gather in one place, the Inheritors can basically smell them. That's not ideal. Jessica teamed up with Silk and Spider-Man Noir and fought Inheritors Bricks and Bora, watched Noir get badly injured, and escaped to another universe so he would recover. Then Peter Parker gave Jessica perhaps the most stressful undercover assignment imaginable. Go infiltrate the Inheritors' homeworld. While undercover, Jessica uncovered the truth about the Master Weaver and gathered the intelligence that eventually helped the Spider Army defeat the Inheritors. After surviving another multiversal apocalypse, Jessica decided she'd had enough Avenger business. She quit. But her new goal, which I guess was always been her goal, but like this was her main goal now, was to help normal people. One of her first detective cases involved Roger Gawking, the D-list supervillain known as Porcupine. Have you heard of Porcupine? Probably not. Roger wanted help because several villain spouses had mysteriously disappeared. Jessica tracked everyone to a tiny town called Moon's Hollow, where she discovered nobody had actually been kidnapped. All the wives and families had willingly run away together to escape their abusive criminal partners while simultaneously blackmailing those same villains for money. And to be honest, it's not the worst retirement plan. Like, is it unhinged? Yeah. But I think they cooked a little. The town's founder eventually attacked Jessica in a powered exosuit, but once Jessica learned the town existed to protect abuse survivors, she agreed to keep their location secret as long as everyone stopped extorting their exes. Which, done deal. Reporter Ben Urich planned to expose Moon's Hollow and then intentionally missed his publishing deadline because he realized the story would have ruined dozens of people's fresh starts. Ben basically looked at journalism and said, "Today we're choosing compassion," and Jessica approved. On Ben's suggestion, she also took Roger Porcupine under her wing. Roger desperately wanted to become a better father for his daughter Kaylee, and despite constantly making reckless decisions, Jessica started slowly trusting him. Naturally, the universe interrupted with another Avengers emergency. During Secret Wars, Reed Richards and Sue Storm selected Jessica and Black Widow to pilot a lifeboat that would preserve humanity after the universe died. The ship exploded. Everyone on board died. But, don't worry. It's fine. Reality got rebooted shortly after, so it technically really didn't happen. Like I said, comic books are exhausting. Back in the restored universe, Jessica made a huge life decision. She had a baby. Through artificial insemination, Jessica became the mother of Jerry Drew. Or Gary Drew. I don't know. It's Gerry. So if there's any Garys or Jerrys out there that spell it like this, please let me know which one it is, because I've run into this problem way more than you think. Anyways, she became the mother to Jerry/Gary, all while refusing to retire from superhero work. She mostly handled investigations while Ben Urich and Roger helped with the field work whenever pregnancy made punching people less practical. Then Carol Danvers invited Jessica to visit the Alpha Flight maternity ward. It was a very sweet gesture, except the Skrulls invaded the hospital. Jessica immediately organized all the moms into an anti-Skrull strike force, because if there's one thing more dangerous than superheroes, it's moms protecting their babies. And as a mom myself, I can tell you, I will do some foul things for my kids. Like, y'all don't stand a chance. And Jessica has superpowers, so it's over. Halfway through the battle, Carol casually informed Jessica that the hospital was actually inside a black hole. Jessica barely had time to process that before labor started. She underwent an emergency C-section, held on to her newborn son for literal seconds, got off the operating table, defeated the remaining scrolls, and then collapsed. See, now that's multitasking. That is motherhood, and it completely changed Jessica. Every time she tried hanging out with Carol, Clint, Patsy Walker, Jennifer Walters, or anyone else, she spent the whole evening wondering whether her son was okay at home. Roger was babysitting. Roger was perfectly capable, but Jessica still worried anyways. And I get that because, I could have a nun watching my kids and I'm still going to worry. If you've ever felt like a mom doesn't trust you to watch your kids, don't take it personally. I wouldn't, it just happens. Eventually, she decided the best thing she could teach her son wasn't staying home forever. It was showing him what being a hero actually meant. Then came Civil War II. Carol Danvers began relying on Ulysses Kane, an inhuman who could predict the future crimes. Jessica hated the idea immediately. Carol eventually convinced her to help investigate Ulysses' visions anyways. Jessica solved multiple predicted crimes until she turned on the TV. Hawkeye had just killed Bruce Banner. Jessica was furious. She investigated Banner's final day herself and became so angry with Carol's methods that she literally stormed into Alpha Flight headquarters looking for a fight. Their friendship survived, but barely. But to this day, it's all good now. While checking on Moon's Hollow, Jessica learned Roger's ex-wife still blamed her for keeping Roger away from his daughter. And then, of course, things got even worse. Ben Urich showed up with devastating news. Roger had been killed by Hobgoblin. Jessica immediately launched an investigation, only to discover Hobgoblin murdered Roger to sell the rights to the Porcupine identity. Comic books have intellectual property disputes, too. Fortunately, Roger wasn't actually dead. Carol had previously given Jessica ridiculous durable maternity clothes. Roger happened to be wearing them. They literally saved his life. Jessica was so relieved that she kissed him. Hobgoblin interrupted. Roger got kidnapped again because this guy could not take a break. Jessica, despite multiple broken bones, chased Hobgoblin into a junkyard, stole one of his gliders, and challenged him to an aerial game of chicken and beat him with Roger's help. Captain Marvel arrived just as Jessica and Roger were kissing again. Carol tried to give an emotional speech. Jessica silently gestured, "We'll make up later." Carol got the message, friendship was restored, and relationship upgraded. Once healed, Jessica threw a party to announce that she and Roger were officially dating. Natasha Romanoff, who had absolutely no right to judge anyone, questioned Jessica's life choices. So that started an argument. But mid-argument, Jessica's son, the baby, crawled out of a window and started climbing out the outside of the wall. Every superhero immediately panicked. Roger calmly rescued him, and Jessica silently felt validated. So good for her for feeling validated. When Hydra trapped New York in magical darkness during the Secret Empire, Jessica teamed up with Doctor Strange, Wilson Fisk, yeah, that Wilson Fisk, Daredevil, and Ben Urich to take the Sanctum Sanctorum from Baron Mordo. Somehow it worked. Then the Inheritors escaped again. Kane recruited Jessica for another Spider-Verse crisis. She initially wanted absolutely nothing to do with it until someone pointed out that her baby counted as a spider totem. Then her mom mode activated. Jessica led the mission to stop the Inheritors from resurrecting Solus. Using Spider-Kid as bait, which is, poor kid. The team killed Verna with a lethal dose of radiation. Jessica successfully grabbed Solus's resurrection crystal, which turned out to be Verna's trap. Jessica got teleported away, and the Inheritors resurrected Solus anyway. Eventually, the Spider Heroes won again, and Otto Octavius came up with perhaps the weirdest redemption plan ever. Kill the Inheritors, then resurrect them as innocent babies before they could become soul-eating monsters. Shockingly, though, it worked. So, I guess this is your sign. If you have a weird idea, you think it might just work, just go for it, because it worked for Otto Octavius. Jessica later joined Strike Force alongside Blade, Winter Soldier, Spectrum, Angela, and Wiccan after being framed by a race called the Verdae. The Verdae turned out to be homeless refugees after the War of the Realms, so instead of destroying them, Strikeforce helped them relocate. Deadpool even let them use Monster Island to relocate to, so that was nice. Money was getting tight, and baby Jerry/Gary wasn't cheap, so Jessica accepted a bodyguard job for billionaire Michael Marquand and commissioned Big Ronnie to design her a practical working costume separate from her superhero outfit. She also entered an underground monster fight club, and she won. Which, a monster underground fight club sounds dope, by the way. Almost accidentally got signed up as a professional cage fighter. Did not follow up with that, though. During the Katati invasion, Carol asked Jessica to investigate whether her newly discovered half-sister, L'Oreal, had actually committed the crime she was accused of. Jessica agreed, using her detective skills instead of fists for once. Doctor Strange temporarily boosted Jessica and the team with magical copies of Carol's universal weapons powers. They uncovered the real culprit, Wastrel, right before the Katati attack interrupted everything. The spell wore off mid-fight, and Lori grabbed the universal weapon herself and saved the day. Afterward, Jessica's contribution to the team morale was basically movie night at my apartment. During Last Remains, Madam Web warned Spider-Man's allies about Kindred. Jessica joined the newly formed Order of the Web. Then everything went straight to hell, as it has before, but, it still hurts every time. Kindred possessed Jessica and the other spider heroes with demon swarms, forcing them to torture Peter Parker and nearly murder innocent civilians. Peter literally offered up his own life to free them, because that's the Peter Parker way. Once Jessica woke up, she remembered none of it. She mostly woke to frightened civilians running away from her. Doctor Strange sorted out the magical mess, though. Eventually, the Order helped save Peter, fought Kindred again, and agreed someone needed to keep watching New York because things clearly were not getting less horrifying. Around this time, Jessica's own body suddenly started betraying her. While protecting her billionaire boss's daughter, Rebecca, Jessica discovered her powers and even her radiation resistance were slowly killing her. Michael confessed something absolutely insane. Also, Michael is the boss, the billionaire boss, by the way. He was secretly Jessica's half-brother. He'd used Jonathan Drew's old research trying to cure Rebecca's cancer. It backfired. Jessica inherited the problem. To make matters worse, Rebecca was actually Jessica's niece. Trying to find a cure led Jessica back to Wundagore, where she discovered her mother, Miriam, was somehow still alive. Sort of. Kind of. It turns out it was another clone. The clone blamed Jessica for everything, tried to kill her, fought her in a full-on berserker brawl, and ultimately sacrificed herself, stopping Octavia Vermis. Because every Drew family reunion ends in attempted murder, apparently. Jessica spent months hunting the High Evolutionary for a cure, while Carol tried to convince her to slow down. Jessica refused to slow down, and then the King in Black invaded Earth. Symbiote dragons turned out to be especially vulnerable to Jessica's venom blasts, but the temporary boost also made her increasingly aggressive. Carol quite literally had to lock Jessica in a Hulk containment tank until the invasion ended. It was not ideal. Things somehow escalated even further when Octavia Vermis promised Jessica a cure in exchange for stealing Hydra technology, dinosaur mutagens, and Avengers data. Jessica reluctantly agreed. This eventually led everyone to the High Evolutionary secret volcano, because of course he has one. There, Jessica found an entire army of Miriam Drew clones, which is, I did not see coming. The cure finally worked after one of those clones accidentally punched Jessica into a giant laser array. Seriously. That's how she got better. Octavia immediately murdered her own daughter for being a weakness. Jessica punched her into next week. The High Evolutionary then transformed Octavia into a dinosaur servant, so problem was solved. Jessica apologized to all her friends for how she'd acted while dying, helped cure Rebecca, and finally got her health back. With Michael paying her generously afterward, Jessica had Big Ronnie redesign her iconic classic outfit. Feeling like herself again, she stopped a pair of sword-wielding criminal brothers, only to come home and discover Roger wanted to end their relationship. he felt like he could never truly be Jessica's equal, which is true. Jessica could only cry as he packed his things and left. Unfortunately, heartbreak wasn't even the final chapter. Jessica chased Fireball through Newark Airport over a floppy disk containing the high evolutionary research, fought Lady Bullseye, and discovered Michael had secretly become obsessed with using the cure technology. Things spiraled into giant mutations, helicopters rigged to explode, monster transformations, Rebecca wearing battle armor, and Jessica defeating her mutated brother, now called Adernum, with one broken arm. Rebecca ultimately exiled Michael and his accomplice from New York. Jessica comforted her traumatized niece, then finally went to see a nurse herself. As if all things weren't bad enough, Mayor Fisk later unleashed Veronki, the Skrull Queen who'd stolen Jessica's identity years earlier, you may remember. The Skrull Queen kidnapped baby Jerry/Gary. Jessica fought her through New York, onto a garbage scow, and finally imprisoned her once and for all. Because if you threaten Spider-Woman's kid, you're getting the full package. And then Moreland came back again. Jessica joined the Order of the Web one more time, only for Spider-Man Noir, who'd secretly been brainwashed by Shathra to stab her with a magical dagger. Jessica literally faded out of existence after being severed from the Web of Life. Fortunately, after the Spider Army defeated Shathra, the creator of the web himself, Neith, restored everyone who'd been erased. So yes, Jessica Drew has survived radiation poisoning, Hydra brainwashing, identity theft by an alien queen, magical death, multiversal spider vampires, childbirth during a Skrull invasion, being slowly poisoned by her own powers, an army of clone mothers, dinosaur science, and being erased from reality itself. And somehow, she's still one of Marvel's most functional adults. So that is Jessica Drew. Her background is bananas. It is extensive. It is wild. And I knew this was going to be a long episode because there's no way to cover it all in 10 minutes or under. It would be doing a disservice to the character because she's been through so much. And she still continues to go through so much. And she's a dope character. She deserves a spotlight. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you like and subscribe. And I hope you have a marvelous day.